Welcome, Seth Breedlove. Thanks to Adventures in Poor Taste for putting this interview together. Seth Breedlove, if you don't know him, is a documentary filmmaker known for his work on exploring American folklore, cryptids, and paranormal phenomena through his film series, Small Town Monsters. And he has gained recognition for his thorough research, compelling storytelling, and the ability to bring to life the mysteries and legends of small towns across the United States and their weird happenings. Breedlove's films often delve into the cultural and historical context of myths, such as Bigfoot, UFOs, and presenting eyewitness accounts and expert opinions and the stories of the people to whom these things happen. So, welcome to this interview, Seth Breedlove.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's good to see you again. I don't think we've met since 2018, something like that at CryptidCon
Cryptid
in Kentucky.
Con.
Yep.
Yeah, hanging out with my friend Ellie. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was a good time.
I hope to get back up there again. I think they're still doing those.
hmm
I haven't been in a couple of years, but
I haven't either, actually. I didn't go last year. I don't know if I'll be there. We've like scaled way back on the amount of events we do. So.
yeah, you're also doing your own. You want to talk about that a little?
Oh yeah, we do an event here in Canton, Ohio, called Monster Fest, which I guess is comparable to Crypticon. I was a comic geek before I was into cryptids, and so I kind of brought what I had experienced at Comic Cons to the idea behind Monster Fest. So we tried to create basically like a Comic Con atmosphere to cryptids, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. We the first year was pretty cool. Way more people than we expected. And this year we kind of wanted to build off of what we did last year, so we're bringing the Astonishing Legends guys in.
Yeah.
Jim Harold will be there. Micah Hanks. Wait, no, Micah's not at that this year. No. It's Lyle Blackburn and Ken Gerhard. And
Yeah, I saw Kim was going to be there. I've never met Kim, but we share a birthday.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a pretty chill kind of Comic Con atmosphere. Way more laid back than a lot of the Bigfoot and paranormal events that I've been to. Far less of a focus on like people trying to impress you with their incredible evidence, and more of just like embracing the fun of the topics.
Yeah. And I think, I kind of hang out with the skeptic community.
Mm-hmm.
I think of myself as what do I call it? A pro reality activist,
Mm-hmm.
but I love monsters. I mean, I'm insane for these things. I've watched so many monster movies and I really appreciate your work. Your documentaries are really cool because I think if people watch them, they may get the vibe of, a cable channel, Discovery Channel or whatever special. But the difference is you're not making these as filler between commercials. You're making these because you care about this stuff and the people and the stories. And I think the passion you have for the topics really comes across in the products that you produce.
Thanks. Yeah. I think I forget who I was talking to. I was talking to someone today about this actually, and said that the only way this stuff is going to get made on the level that we want it to be, I guess, put across, to like a general audience, if it's down to like the independents to actually go out and create the stuff that we would want to see, because otherwise everything's going to be kind of what you're seeing on History Channel or whatever, and we're kind of trying to create sort of the opposite of what the major networks are doing typically. Anyway, that's kind of my goal.
Yeah. Well, now you've been using Kickstarter as a funding mechanism. So what, I guess that means that you don't have to put as much at risk to produce a product, so you can get your things made and know there's an audience already there. Is that working out pretty well? It looks like you got some pretty ambitious goals for this year's Kickstarter.
Well, we've been doing, I mean, this is our 10th Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So we do it each year. And it did in the earliest days, it was like the goal was a little different. It was basically just like, if we can raise this much money, then we can afford to put these movies on DVD. These days, the the funds that are raised through the Kickstarter go directly into not just making the movies we're making as part of the campaign, but kind of like creating everything that STM does. It also helps offset some of the the variables that happen just with independent film. We're in the middle of like a pretty dramatic lawsuit with our former distributor who hasn't paid us since like July of last year. So if we hadn't had the Kickstarter last year, we might not exist currently as a company. And that's just the reality of being an independent in the in the major corporate driven space of film. So we rely on it pretty heavily. But the plan is ultimately that this year and next year would be the final 2 years to do the full-fledged like Kickstarted campaign. The next year is our 10-year anniversary as a company. So we wanted to sort of have that be the hopping off point for the Kickstarter. So this year and then next year kind of like planned to be the final years we would be using Kickstarter to raise the funds. There's numerous reasons behind it, but as much as we love turning to crowdfunding and all that kind of stuff and letting the audience dictate, what we can make, there does come a point where it feels a little disingenuous to turn to Kickstarter. I don't know if that makes sense, but at the same time, like we're like most independents, like you kind of have to figure out how to utilize something like crowdfunding, whether it's Patreon or Kickstarter or even something like our YouTube channel memberships that we do. So it's a huge part of not just how we are able to make the stuff we make, but how we're able to actually stay in business. I mean, literally in 2023, we would not have, I don't think we would have made it to the fall without that Kickstarter happening, during the earlier part of the year.
I mean, we all have passions. We all want to do certain things, especially creative people. And the real fact is that if you think of this as being like a biological entity, money is our calories. If we don't have those calories, no matter how much we want to run, we can't run without money. So that it's really important.
Oh yeah, and we've grown so much over the last few years. STM now has a staff of 10 people, which is crazy because it went from like the earliest days where it was me sitting in my office running everything, our social media, the editing, all the movies, shooting the movies. I mean, everything kind of ran through me. Now there's a staff of like 10 people that work here. So that does indicate that we're succeeding, but it becomes more and more difficult to function just because it's tough to run an independent company, in the current landscape of how this industry works.
It is a strange world, and I'm sure you know much more about it than I do. Do you want to talk about? I mean, what is your plan after the 10th year? What are you going to do instead, or how?
Well, we're as far as crowdfunding goes, the hope is that the revenue streams we have through things like we're launching our own free ad-supported television channel this year.
Called like Roku and stuff.
Called Unexplained TV. We are pretty much going forward, we're going to be self-distributing everything. YouTube in 2021, we really started heavily investing in YouTube, and that's been big for us. But the best thing about the way we didn't do this intentionally, like most things with STM, it's all like happy accidents. It's a happy accident that we exist today, period. But in 2021, when we started doing episodic content on YouTube, we were, most of the Bigfoot stuff out there today are either a guy reading anonymous accounts that have been sent to him through emails, or it's like people in the woods with night vision, kind of uncut for an hour or whatever. We approached it the same way we did the movies, and it was, there's a lot of editing going on. There's a decent amount of money that went into sending people like Alexander Pedikov and Eli Watson, who do our YouTube stuff, sending them around the country. And at the time, it was just like, that's how I know how to do this stuff. But now what's happened is, because of the fact that the production value is relatively high, we've we're in a position where we can distribute that content to other platforms like Tubi and Amazon, and it gets picked up because it's like a decent production quality as opposed to most of what you see on YouTube. So we've created a whole secondary market for like the episodic stuff we do through other distribution platforms like Amazon and Tubi, and then we've got the television channel launching. So I don't know. We shouldn't be here. I can 100% say that we should not be here, especially after the year that was last year. But we've somehow managed to survive. So it's trying to figure out the right steps to take. Although ultimately, I think that most of what leads to the fact that we are still here is just dumb luck. So we as far as like plans for the future, we've got a lot of plans for the future. The channel is a big one. The publishing side of the company is a big one. Growing, one of the big things that I wanted to do was offer other independent filmmakers a place to come and hang their hat and create a home for people who, like me, when I was starting out on this. This was not, there was no company like Small Town Monsters. There was no place where I could go and work. I had to create my own stuff. And then, for the first 4 or 5 years of doing it, I didn't make a dime doing it. So we're able to bring in filmmakers and give them a regular paycheck doing what they want to do. And that's a huge deal, because that's not common in the landscape of film, and especially like cryptozoological or paranormal film. So the goal would be to keep growing that and create a really cool incubator for other filmmakers like myself who want to learn the skills and do everything independently and dictate the way in which they're doing it. Because there's not a lot of oversight at STM over what the other filmmakers are doing. We have ideas, we have things that we pitch to them, and we okay projects, we okay budgets and things like that. But as far as like, hey, you have to edit this way or that way, we don't do that, because that would not be a great creative environment to work in. So the goal going forward is just to continue to grow that and hopefully bring in even more people, as the company grows.
So you'll be, when you have your TV channel, that'll be a distribution channel for content,
yeah
right?
Yeah, and that's one of the exciting things about it is we already are kind of a distributor. There's platforms we utilize that allow us to get our content onto things like Amazon and Tubi, that have basically put us in a position where we can self-distribute again, which is how we handled everything up through 2020. But now we found other avenues that allow us to do that once again in a way that makes sense, and in a way that will actually, generate revenue, as opposed to, just putting us in a bind or whatever. So the Unexplained TV really opens up what we can do and the number of platforms we can put our content on. And we're not fashioning ourselves as a distribution house for this stuff, but for sure, maybe down the road that would be something we would look into. I mean, the biggest thing for me has always been, as long as we can maintain the quality, because you see, and I'm not bagging on anyone that's a filmmaker. Just making any movie is an accomplishment, whether people see it as high quality or not. It takes a lot of time and effort to make something, and but there are a number of, there's so the space is flooded with documentaries and films about cryptids now, and a lot of it is of a questionable quality. And so I always try to make sure that we're, maintaining a higher level than a lot of what I see out there in the independent space or in the network television space,
Well, I would have thought until, I don't know, the past 5 years, that one of the biggest important things about telling story would be narrative content.
Mm-hmm.
But things like the amazing world of Twitch,
Yeah.
and reaction videos on YouTube,
Yeah.
it's just people watching someone else's work and making faces and commenting, and it's like the narrative is a low bar. So
Yeah.
I think if you make something compelling, there's a place for you, obviously. How do you see that being a factor in the content going forward? Do you think that's going to be something that do you think there'll be content that's more like that kind of thing where it's real time, less edited, more about the people watching than what's actually being watched?
Some of what Alex does with he did a series called Dark Coast that basically was like a video journal of his time in Alaska. And I guess that would be sort of on that less editing, but no, I don't see that being the future for us, because of the ultimate goal for me is that the stuff that we're creating is across numerous platforms. So it's not just a home on YouTube, it's a home on Tubi and Amazon and things like that. And those platforms are not super welcoming of the less, the less edited, more reactiony kind of stuff. They're a home for fairly polished content. And so if our goal is to get like the largest audience possible, that's kind of what I want to do is create content that can be digested across multiple platforms. I also hate calling everything content now, but I don't know. I never know how to put it anymore. And when you're talking about episodic stuff and films, the easiest way is just to say content, just because we're doing so many different types of content.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was yelling at my kid a while back, and I was ranting, and she let me finish my rant, and then she said, "Unsubscribe." It's like, okay, all right, I see what the internet's done to my family.
Yeah, scary.
What's
scary
interesting,
stuff.
I expected this interview to be largely about the directorial process, the writing process, these sort of things. But it sounds like you're getting much more into the producer side of all of that. And
well, maybe I actually am trying to step back from that.
Okay.
For sure the last 2 years have been that. It's been growing the company to a certain point, and a lot of my focus has been on the company side of it.
Yeah.
And but at the end of the day, I'm a storyteller, and I don't consider myself a businessman or any of that stuff. And so within Small Town Monsters, we have Courtney Swihart, who's our basically the financial manager, and then Adam Dugan, who kind of runs the day-to-day operations of everything. And we've done that so that I can kind of step back into more of the creative directorial role. Last year I did 3 films and 6 episodes of a YouTube series. And this year I want to put my focus back entirely on the feature films. And so I'm not just nonstop creating content like some sort of machine. I want to be able to focus on the creative side of making these movies and get back to what I think made us really special in the beginning, especially my work in the beginning. I think it was my son has been watching our movies, and what this has done is it's put me in a position where I now have to watch my older stuff. And the shocking thing has been that I find a lot of value in the earlier stuff I did.
That's good.
And I weigh it against what I'm doing today, and I'm like, where's the I don't feel like I have the creativity anymore that I did back then. And I want to get back to I think a lot of that just has to do with the nature of running a business, and a business when you're also trying to create the product. And I hate to use these terms, but if you're creating the thing that we're selling, it's hard to focus on putting all this creative energy into that when you're also like, well, how do we get the press release written for this, and who's distributing the press release, and can I get a trailer cut in time? And then when I'm done with that, I got to go right into editing 6 episodes of a YouTube series in between editing 3 movies, and it just becomes a lot. And then you're also like hiring people and figuring out what our budget is and all that kind of, production schedules and all this. And so this year, for sure, I'm trying to focus much more on obviously running the business day to day, but at the same time having more freedom to really focus in on the movies that I'm editing this year, and trying to reinvigorate some of the creative juices that I had in the early days.
Well, I definitely want to talk about some of your plans for the year for the Kickstarter.
Hmm.
But can we talk a little bit about sort of how you have gone in the past for how do you pick a project? Because there's so many stories across America. Like how do you sort of narrow in on the ones that you feel like have enough material there to tell a story?
Yeah, for me, it's always going to come down to the people that are involved more so than the phenomenon that is like at the center of the story. We're making a movie about the Thomas Mantell incident called
Yeah.
Lost Contact, and I was drawn to that because of the grandsons, Eric Mantell, and now I'm blanking on the other one's name, but Eric Mantell especially, it texts me fairly frequently, and we've talked a lot about his grandpa. Not even honestly, I've spent more time just talking to him about his family life and the family than any kind of UFO related stuff. Everything's been about Thomas Mantell as a person and how he grew up and what he was like, and that's the stuff that draws me to these stories to begin with. Far more than a cryptid or a phenomenon. I think I would have a really hard time being creative with these films if all I was thinking about is like, well, how do I make Bigfoot scary in this, or so also like I grew up an emo kid, so so I'm drawn to like I don't know, the more like emotional aspects of the stories. My favorite movies we've done are all the ones that are kind of sappy, like Terror in the Skies is one that I really enjoyed making. It's one that my 6-year-old, has been watching a lot lately. And when I watch it with him, I'm like, yeah, I could see like why I still think so highly of this movie. It's a very kind of heartfelt film. And I just made a movie last year about we filmed on the trail of Bigfoot, the origin in between my mother's death in May and her funeral. Like, so
Right.
we shot this. I literally flew to British Columbia 2 days after she died, shot this movie, flew back 6 days later, and went to her funeral the next day. So like that movie's all about like her death and how that impacted me at the time and things like that. Far less about isn't Bigfoot creepy or whatever. It's. I
Yeah.
mean, I find that all these subjects really, they're either an outlet for or somehow play into our human experience, and I find that that's more and more the case for me as time goes on, especially. And I'm not trying to portray this stuff in a more lofty light or anything like that, but that's just the fact of it. If you're into this stuff for long enough, you start to look at it through a different lens. And I definitely am starting to get to that point with topics like Bigfoot. Like, why am I so interested in this?
Yeah.
You know,
Well, we've been doing Monster Talk for what 12 years now, and it's
mhm.
like the question of is Bigfoot real is so far back in the past. That's so far away from what we worry about every time we want to cover these topics. You start to wonder bigger picture questions. You
Yeah,
know what? Why do people report these things? Why do people see these things? Why do people trust their memory so much?
yeah,
And why do some stories spread and others die?
hmm,
Why is the Dover demon this tiny little thing, but yet some other monster has a huge footprint? Not
yeah,
literally huge, but you know what I mean.
yeah,
But and it's like, and I don't know the answers to those things, but when you start doing these sort of really sort of deep introspection into as a category, this sort of meta analysis, I think that's when you really start to get to the meat of what's really going on. And I don't mean what's going on in any case. I mean what's going on with us as humans is we have to experience this strange world.
Well, something I've learned, especially, and this is off topic probably, but something I've learned in the last few years, especially, is just like I'm not an intelligent person. I barely graduated high school, and so what I can do is document what I can document, and then let people like yourself and my friend Ellie Haskin, who are intelligent, who have like a college education and are on a different level intellectually from me, then you guys can comment on it in a way that you know probably puts things in a much better perspective than what I can do. I'm like a lumbering ogre. I see a story and I'm like, oh, I'm impacted by this person's story, and that's it. Like, there's nothing that goes beyond that. I think about this stuff a lot, but I never know how to like. I'm bad at putting things into words, is what
But
I'm
you're
finding
good
now.
at putting things into pictures, and that's important for a filmmaker.
Yeah, I guess
So
so.
it is. It really is. I mean, it's just so I really love your work, and you talk yourself down, but it's obvious from watching, like, say, the Momo movie.
Mhm.
You've seen some movies and you've picked up the visual elements. Like, you did such a beautiful. There's so many shots in there. Like, oh, it's the Boggy Creek shot. It's like I was seeing where you were pulling stuff and making reference to all kinds of other
Yeah,
other things, and I really appreciated that. So,
yeah.
uh,
Film. I mean, that growing up, that was I wanted to be a director, and my mom raised us on Ray Harryhausen and the
yeah,
Marx Brothers, and all that kind of stuff. So growing up, I film was a language I understood in a way that I didn't understand a lot of things. Again, not being a very intelligent person. So the definitely Momo is loaded with. There's a lot of callbacks to the creature from Black Lake, and
yes, another
um,
great, yeah.
yeah, there's a scene in there. No one's ever mentioned it to me, but it's one I think is hilarious. There's a scene where Momo's approaching, and you see all these different shots of animals. Freaking, there's like
I
four or
I,
five.
I thought of Ivan Marks when I saw that. I don't know what you're
That's what
going
it
for.
is. It's Ivan Marks. It's
I totally got
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's an Ivan Marks throwback. So and then there's a mysterious monsters in there somewhere. I can't remember what it was. And then there's a couple callbacks to Bigfoot Manor Beast, which is another one of those '70s docs that I
I
love.
love those things so much. So I really
Yeah,
appreciate that. Yeah, that
cool.
was awesome.
Yeah.
Well, now this On the Trail of Bigfoot, the Ancients. So
Hmm.
this is like a series that you're doing here.
Yeah, On the Trail of Bigfoot's been going on since 2018. And those have been really well received. But as time has gone on, they've gotten more and more personal. It started with the journey because we filmed this On the Trail of Bigfoot, the journey, during the height of COVID. And it was about our experience of leaving Ohio in the summer. Was it the summer of the pandemic? And kind of like our first time getting out of the house for a bunch of us, and going and doing something in the woods when we hadn't left our homes since January, basically.
Yeah.
And how that maybe plays into what we enjoy so much about going out and looking for Bigfoot, the escape aspect of it. And from there, it's just kind of, they've gotten more and more personal as time has gone on. And like I said, this one I just made about my mom, and that one's not out yet for the public, but hopefully in the next couple of months it should be out. Um, the origin, and then the ancients is gonna. So the origin is kind of about my mom. I guess the ancients is kind of about my dad, because we're filming it near Bryson City, North Carolina, and my dad's family. Were settled down in Bryson City. What is it, like 100 years before there was a Bryson City? So,
Yeah.
it's kind of about that area. The Appalachian Bigfoot is kind of how I'm focusing that one.
That'll be neat. Yeah, I've got a lot of family from North Carolina.
Yeah,
That's where my family was from.
yeah.
The
My
old
dad's
Scotch
like
Irish.
Yeah, that's with me. Yeah,
Mhm.
a lot of German. Yeah, they settled in Bryson City and then moved to Murphy eventually. But a lot of the family's still in Bryson City. So if I go down there, I went down there for like a preliminary trip back in August and got to go down. And there's a Breedlove Road with a Breedlove cemetery, and I can go in there and look at like my great grandma and stuff like that, their headstones and all that kind of stuff. So.
That's neat. Now, Micah Hanks is from what, near Asheville somewhere?
Hmm.
I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I need to get up there at some point. Oh, you're doing a Goatman.
Hmm.
And that one looks like that's a tough topic. I don't think we've ever done a pure Goatman episode on Monster Talk because there's so many sort of variants, and it's just
Yeah.
like kind of hard to get wrapped around how to handle it. So I look forward to seeing what you do with that.
Yeah, that'll be all encompassing is the plan. We shot an interview for that all the way back in March of last year in New Mexico. So it's not just relegated to the Kentucky Goatman stuff. It should be sort of, a much larger look at it throughout the United States. We've been shooting interviews for that for about a year now. So that cryptid series, the idea behind that is we focus on lesser known cryptids or cryptids that we wouldn't necessarily be able to justify making a full movie out of without the help of the Kickstarter. So,
Yeah.
we call them Kickstarter exclusive titles because once the backers make it happen, they get exclusive access to it until it comes out for the general public. Usually, in the case of like the Chupacabra movie, it'll be like 8 months before that thing comes out for the public. They've had it. Backers have had that since like October, and I don't think the general public probably won't see that till July or August.
Cool. I mean, that's very exciting. I love all your work, so I'm just very excited about this. Now, will your TV station or when you get your channel going, do you think you're going to be streaming all your own material too? Like, will everything go into
Yeah.
rotation eventually?
Yeah, I would say that there will be some sort of window that happens for a lot of this stuff, like the features especially, but of a few months before it shows up on there. But eventually, every single thing we've made will be streaming on the channel, and we're doing some what we're calling specials, which are
Yeah.
basically a film that it will come out on YouTube, on Unexplained TV, and on like Amazon and Tubi, all that stuff on the same day.
Nice.
For most of the Kickstarted stuff will not fall into that category. None of the Kickstarter stuff actually will fall into that category. But we're making a movie about like Mystery Lights that'll be out this year that will come out across all these streaming platforms around the same time.
Is that one going to be about sort of globally or
It's
brown males in
no,
particular?
I think it's focused more on the Chestnut Ridge area.
Okay.
I know Ron Murphy is putting out a book through STM Publishing this year about Phantom Lights, and the movie will kind of tie into his work, the work he's done on the Chestnut Ridge.
Neat. And will you think you'll be doing any sort of like live streams on your channel, or does that technology allow for that?
It exists and we can do it. It's just figuring out if the audience is going to be there to actually have an interest in watching it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
But if they are, it's something we would love to do because we have already discussed it.
I know Shudder is part of AMC, but it always feels like the sort of, adopted kid,
Yeah.
It's like,
The cast off.
right. But I really like some of the things they've been doing with I'm a big fan of Jim
Mhm.
and all the
Yeah.
special events they do there.
Yeah.
I think there's I wonder, I'll stop. That's not I have a lot of ideas, but they don't need to go into this interview. It's like, oh, what can we do this? It's like I did I ever tell you I love monsters? It's like I get very excited about them, which
Yeah.
is amazing. I mean, it's like I've been married just shy of 25 years and still pretty passionate about my wife. And I think about that. It's like there's a few things, my wife and monsters and computers, that I just can't seem to let go of. So
Yeah.
yes.
No, I'm like that. My hang up seems to be like if I have a fascination with something, I inevitably try to make it like my work. And that's like this, it's a problem I've had for a very long time, but it started when I was a kid. I wanted to be a writer, and then I started trying to write children's books, and then I eventually became like a freelance writer for newspapers. But right now it's like I've been into comic books forever, and we're going to publish, STM Publishing is going to publish a graphic novel that I'm co-writing this year. So
Oh,
I
that's
can't
cool.
I can't like not delve into the things that I'm super passionate about without trying to make it my work.
Yeah. Well, I just started a publishing house, so
Nice.
our first book's probably going to be out next week.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
awesome.
like look, I got the proofs. I messed
Oh,
up the
nice.
cut. Yeah,
Dude, that's a big deal too when it comes in. That's
it
a
really
huge,
is.
it
The
feels huge.
corrected proof where the cover looks right should be here tomorrow. So it's like I'm so stoked about that. So
Congrats.
yeah, it's just there's so many things that have sort of greased the wheels or to be able to be a creator,
Hmm.
but I still feel like that there's these gatekeepers now at sort of the streaming level. And
Hmm.
it's like, so I'm really hoping that you kind of bust past the gatekeepers and, really succeed here. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, it's tough. It's
Yeah.
what you just said, I feel on a daily basis. Like we are up against the, yeah, and the corporations. And now we've got this AI stuff that's like blowing up, and you're wondering how that's going to impact things. If the I have a really good friend who works on STM movies, who's like this amazing effects artist, and he's genuinely concerned that he might never have a job, doing movies because of this AI stuff that's coming down the road. And you don't know if that stuff will help independence or if it's going to hurt it. My gut feeling is it's going to hurt independence on a massive level, but I can never figure out how this stuff will go. But that's just also, I've become super cynical after the road we've been on for the last year with distributors. I'm super cynical of how things are going to impact independence in general.
Well, again, for all those reasons and more, I really hope you succeed with your TV channel and being an independent, because every time somebody succeeds being an independent creator, it inspires all those who are struggling. So, you know, I hope that you are a beacon of hope and not a cautionary tale. So that's that's
Well, thank you.
well. Golly, I feel like we've covered a lot of the stuff I needed to cover. You're going to be doing a lake monster movie. Do
Hmm.
you want to talk about that a little bit and the sort of the challenges with?
Yeah.
Yeah, filming on the water sounds hard.
So, well, that's one of the ones that I produced, not directed. So I was involved in producing it, and we shot that. That was shot at the same time we were shooting on the Trail of Bigfoot: The Origin, right between, right before my mom's funeral. So that was a fun time. But we shot that last May, and then originally it was going to be a part of the director's YouTube series, Mysteries and Monsters, and then we decided to hold on to it and put a larger post-production budget behind it, and get, like an effects artist in, get some money into actually licensing some of the purported photos and video of Ogopogo, because that's what the movie's about. And then integrating it into the Kickstarter. It's integrated into the Kickstarter in a weird way. It's not a part of the like 4-film roster. It's a stretch goal. So if we can hit the stretch goal, then backers will get like basically a free DVD or Blu-ray of that movie, which is called Cursed Waters. But yeah, the movie is really, really incredible. I think a lot of people are going to be shocked at how much content is included in it. The type of stuff you don't see in a lot of these lake monster movies, like photos and videos that might actually kind of surprise you. And Ogopogo is one that's interested me for a really long time. So to actually be producing a movie about it was exciting.
Cool.
But Eli's in the middle of putting that one together. It should actually be done in the next few weeks. So I'm excited to see a cut of that one.
Yeah, that'll be really neat. Yeah, it must be such an. I mean, I know how exciting it was just to get some of my projects done this year. Just I've had so many. I have so many that are almost done, and like finally getting them over the finish line. It feels
Yeah.
really good. So I can't
Yeah.
even imagine. Does a film ever get finished though? I mean, it feels like the people are always wanting to tweak them, and it's like, when do you know it's done? Is it done when it's up streaming, or is it done with the director's cut, or when?
No, I don't think any movie we've made is done.
Yeah.
We it's there's also very few movies that we've made where I feel like I'm pleased with it when it's done. I don't know if there's really any. Uh, Momo is one that I'm proud of. Mark of the Bell Witch is the one I'm the most proud of. And I like things like Terror in the Skies and Flatwoods Monster, but no, for the most part, it's like you just reach this point where it's like, well, we have a deadline, and everyone on the crew was telling me this is good, this is great, it's as good as you can get it. I've gotten, we send this stuff through 10 people, 10 people will watch it a dozen times and give me notes every time. And you can fix tweaks nonstop all the way up until the point where I had to send it off to a distributor. There's always going to be one little thing here or there that needs fixed. But the good thing is, in the earliest days of doing this, I was doing it all myself. I was just me. I would finish a cut of a movie, and then rewatch it a dozen times and take all those notes myself. Now I can run it through other people who are watching it with eyes that haven't seen it 100 times, so that's very valuable feedback.
For sure. And of course, as a creator, you see every mistake, and other people won't. And I know when I watch an indie, I am so much more forgiving as a viewer, because I know they weren't backed by millions of dollars of thousands of people.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to watch an independent film that maybe doesn't look as professional, although I think yours look great. And I'll just let it go. I was like, I don't even think that was good. That was good. I like this part. I like that part. But if I go to a Marvel movie and it's messed up or sucks, I'm like, I'll lose my mind. It's like, how could I pay $15 to see that?
Yeah.
It's like, you guys could have done better. I could have done better. It's like, you don't want that happening. So I think you're doing earnest work, and I appreciate it. So
thanks.
Yeah. Well, that's about all I got here. I mean, I could keep talking to you for a long time, but I don't want to tie you up. It's on a Friday night. You should probably be out having fun. Well, dude, I look forward to it. I wish you luck on your Kickstarter. When people want to go see it, how do they find your particular Kickstarter? What do they look for?
Go to Kickstarter.com and look up Small Town Monsters. It should just be the first. If you're on social media, like, we've been posting links and stuff on all the Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of stuff as well. So it's pretty easy to track down.
Well, thanks again for spending some time with me. And thanks again to Adventures in Poor Taste for setting this up. And I really appreciate it. And I wish you the best of luck.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.